Is the Hawkeye offense completely broken? We get into that today with former Hawkeye running back LeShun Daniels. Plus, LeShun looks to stay red hot in his picks. Brought to you by FanDuel today. Locked on Hawkeye.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Trent Condon. He's LeShun Daniels, and we are the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you get your podcasts, and you can also watch us on YouTube. You can always see LeShun when you're on YouTube with that great beard. I'm trying to get it going here a little bit. I just haven't shaved the last couple of days, but you can see us on YouTube. While you're there, make sure you hit that subscribe button. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, today's title sponsor. All right, LeShun, here we go. A win last week. That was great. A environment that was inconsistent, I would say, for a road environment. But night games are always special inside of Kinnick Stadium. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be Ohio State or Michigan coming to town. Even Michigan State and that kind of next year, it's going to be good in there. But the Fire Brian chants were certainly heard loud through the TV speakers. Rewatching the game, you could hear those visibly, audibly here coming through very quickly there. Iowa gets the win, but the frustrations continue even with the loss of Cade McNamara. First, how you doing? And your thoughts. A quick look back to last week before we look forward.
Yeah, for sure. Well, obviously, it's always good to get a Hawkeye win. Like no one's ever gonna complain about winning a football game whatsoever, no matter how it gets done. Right? I mean, you typically you feel better after a win, no matter what. But obviously, there's a bunch of things that I was gonna have to work out and get cleaned up, especially if you want to go ahead and compete for a Big Ten West title, and then obviously try to win the Big Ten outright. So there's a lot of work that's going to need to be done, especially now with Cade being out and Deacon stepping in. Like he's going to have some shoes to fill, but really, like at this point in time, as far as the passing offense, it hasn't been anything to wow anyone. So it's really I think a big opportunity for him to go out and put some good football out
So, my big question for you today is this, LaShawn. As we look at the system, and it just popped in my head this morning. I saw one of those Twitter accounts. I think it was Hawk Chronicles, something like that, and they put up a bunch of old highlights in this day in history. And
there.
it was the Minnesota game, not too far back. Nate Stanley was a quarterback playing up there. Iowa put up big numbers that day and got the victory. And the offense just looks so completely different than what we've watched the last 3 years. And my question is this offense has been so bad. And we've talked about the running game and in changes that need to be made, improvements in the passing game. And boy, just how different it looks today and just what they're doing route wise and schematically than what they were doing 4 or 5 years ago, not very long ago. Is it broken? I mean, because it feels like in a way you should be able to go back to that. It was the same head coach, the same offensive coordinator. You think you'd be good going back to that? Or is it pretty frank? This offensive line stinks. And it's the Jimmies and Joes. These guys are now veterans, but they weren't very good as underclassmen. They're still not very good. What do you look at more? Is it more scheme or is it just, frankly, the offensive line isn't good enough to even get to the level when they were okay offensively 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah. Honestly, a great question. Obviously, I feel like everything starts up front. Everything starts up in the trenches, and the fact that you mentioned it, like the offensive line really hasn't been up to par what we typically expect in really the run game and the pass game. Obviously, in pass blocking, they've done a much better job this year overall than they've done maybe the past couple of years. But the run game part of it is something that's I feel like it's really it really hasn't been what we typically come to expect. I don't know if it's because how the recruiting process has gone, or how the coaching has gone, but it hasn't been of what we truly have come to expect. And I'm not sure. I mean, I talked to some of my offensive line friends like over the past couple of weeks, and was looking at a bunch of different things. And something that someone mentioned to me was that like athleticism overall as a unit isn't as high as maybe it's been in the past years. I mean, you think back, like some of the tackles that we've had, or inside offensive linemen that we've had, like those were like super athletic guys, which obviously allowed us to do maybe some of our traditional stuff in the run game. Obviously get more outside and be able to press the edges a little bit more, even if we didn't have, maybe like crazy burners in the backfield, even though like typically, our running backs, like we've had good speed over the past several years. But that's something that was brought up. And then, another part of it is, I feel like the tendencies that Iowa has had really over this year and last year has been extremely strong in one direction or the other. And Scott Docterman put out a great article, I've been this morning, about Iowa's tendencies. And I'm not going to go ahead and spoil everything about it. Like, if you want to go check it out, go to his Twitter page. He had it on there. But he talked about how, first off, the offense uses obviously a lot of tight ends, right? I think it's like 70% of the time it's two tight end sets, which can be obviously a good and bad thing. But when you look at some like the offense maybe a few years ago, a lot of times there was a little bit more balance between two tight end sets, or maybe even and then one tight end sets, and getting 11 personnel out there. It obviously helped with the receivers that we had at the time. But again, we don't really know enough about our receivers that we have now. Obviously, we've seen them make some plays. You think that you bring in some new guys that they're going to have potential, but we don't really know enough, at least from a fan perspective. So those are some different things that I feel like has played a part to really the kind of the inconsistencies in our offense, and why defenses have been able to scheme against us and really force us to play left-handed offensively.
Really good stuff there, LaShawn. Really enjoyed that, and kind of the way that you broke that down and looking at it, taking it a step further. And another one that you never just know what's going to pop into your head. You talk about tight end usage, having in the running game for you. And looking at the way that Iowa does things, what would you rather have out there? The fullback or an extra tight end? As you as a running back when you were playing, what did you feel was the best for, and especially when you're running, inside outside zone stuff? What did you believe was the best for you personally as a running back?
Yeah. A lot of times, like I liked running outside zone stuff typically more when out of two tight end sets.
Hmm.
It just felt like it was just a little bit more space.
Yeah.
In general, it made it easier to really stretch and read, because obviously, like when you go, 21 personnel, and you got that fullback in there, it condenses everything a little bit, because now as a defense, you don't necessarily you have to worry about that guy coming out in the pass, but you're not like that worried about it. And then obviously, like when you're in two tight end sets, you have ability to be a little bit more balanced, right? If you go a traditional ace set, or but then obviously if you want to go super heavy, you can go ahead and put that tight end as a wing slot. And then like when you run the inside zone plays, I felt like it was easier to run out of, because obviously you might have that fullback leading up, just run a traditional ISO play, or that fullback is going and doing a seal block, which is basically blocking on that defensive end on the backside, and doing it that way. But in general, like you typically got similar looks in the fact that it was going to be a heavier box in general in those packages. And then, obviously when you go 11 personnel, and you get three receivers out there, it opens up things a little bit, not entirely. Because again, it wasn't like our offense passing attack back then was spectacular, but having the ability to CJ had obviously the ability to take advantage of all of our weapons up there on offense, which forced defenses to not go as heavy on the box, no matter which running back happened to be in that time. So yeah, it ends up being a big field thing for each individual running back. But Yeah, that's typically how I liked it, running out of two tight end set or run back set. But I think some of my biggest plays came with the fullback end. So I love having the fullbacks in there.
Open it up a little bit for you. Well,
Yeah.
LeShun, when we come back, we will talk a little bit more about the offense and perhaps an infusion. A lot of conversation this week about Cooper DeJean getting some snaps offensively. Talk about that and just this offensive scheme as we dig a little bit deeper. Plus, we'll make our picks. LeShun red hot. He looks for another winning week presented by FanDuel. That's all to come here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. As a small business owner, I have to make hires from time to time. And as we grow, you want to make more and more hires. But time is money. Finding that right person, incredibly difficult. And if you have a great job, something that you want to put out there, how do you get through all the resumes, all the red tape, everything that goes along with it? LinkedIn Jobs will help you with that. Add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile. That spreads the word that you're hiring. It has simple tools, and I love this. The screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege, linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Trent LeShun back with you once again here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Cooper, stud, punt return. We see him with his ball in his hands, right? We know about all this, LeShun, but him as an offensive player, him out there. I remember watching him in high school, running quarterback, basically being almost a wildcat quarterback. He threw it a little bit more than that, but just running around making plays. We know he's a stud athlete. He's got that wiggle to him, right? Just something different in the hips where he's just able to slide by people, make people miss. I remember talking about this with way back in the day. Well, not way back in the day, Desmond King. And was this, I can't remember if you were around at the time. There was like a week where I think Desmond said something to the media on Tuesday. You guys were hit hard by wide receiver injuries. He said, yeah, there might be a chance that, and then of course it didn't happen. So it brings me back to that. So I don't know if you remember that time. I can't remember exactly what year it was, if you were around or not, but you start with, should they? Yeah, they should. I mean, you have a talented guy like that. You have an offense that's struggling. You should. Will they? That's a different question, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like this is kind of just a pipe dream, to
Yeah.
be honest. I mean, obviously, when you have a guy that is explosive like that and can make plays, with the ball in his hands, the way that Cooper can, and the way that Desmond did when he was in school, like you want those guys to be involved as much as possible. That's the reason why you have those guys on punt return, right? To give them another opportunity versus just being on defense and trying to get an interception or a fumble return or whatever. But I feel like it's just something that we haven't really seen done. I mean, I can't even think. I don't even know if we ever even did, if we did any plays where we just direct snapped it to the running back very often, right?
Yeah.
Like that was something that, that we didn't really do. And with those guys over on the defensive side of the ball and being so important to the defensive side of the ball, it feels like trying to move them over and the risk there, because obviously you never want to get those guys hurt. You never think that they're going to get hurt, but it's always something that's in the back of coach's mind as you're preparing. So I just feel like it's something that they're not willing to take the risk for. Personally, I feel like there's opportunity there, maybe a package here and there, a special package for them to go ahead and whether you put them at receiver, or you put them at running back, or you just put them in a place where the defense has to anticipate the possibility of them getting the ball. I feel like
Mhm.
has some opportunity there, but to be honest, I don't really see it happening. If it does, it will definitely be a pleasant surprise. But yeah, I just definitely don't see it
All right, one more topic for you before we get into our picks. Yesterday, the Big Ten announced the football schedules going forward for the next 5 years, starting next year with the additions of USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington. They're difficult. The Iowa schedule becomes much more difficult now than it was in the Big Ten West. Not only that, well, you don't have a division to win. You have to finish amongst the top two of an 18-team conference just to make the conference championship game. Now, you look at that and it's daunting, right? The additions of those four teams, the evolution of college football, where it's going, it's scary. I heard and read and listened to a lot of doom and gloom from a lot of different people, and I just can't go there. Look, Kirk's not going to be around forever, but the Iowa football program is well looked after, right? Financially. It is one of the top in terms of revenue year after year after year. This is a top 15 program in terms of revenue. This is a top 25 program, certainly in terms of what they've done over the last 45 years, and probably even higher than that when you look at the consistent winner that they have become. Can they be a national championship contender? It's probably not realistic. It just isn't, right? For that to happen. But out of a decade, can this team make a 12-team playoff every 2 out of every 10 years? I don't think that's a stretch. Heck, 9-3 with that schedule when you're playing Oregon, USC, Ohio State, and Penn State in a year, you go 9-3, you might sneak in there and get into a college football playoff. And certainly 10-2 is good enough. I don't know, LeShun. Just I know the schedule is daunting, but I was surprised how much doom and gloom is out there when people are looking big picture. How about you?
Yeah. I honestly, yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with you. Like, obviously Iowa has had its seasons over, you know, past 40, 50 years, right? You think
Yeah.
about it, like where they've had just special years where they've gone on runs and beat some really, really good teams. Like there's no reason why that can't happen, in the future. Especially as the Big Ten conference expands, it's going to be makes it more competitive. It's going to add more fun games to the schedule. Get to see new environments, and obviously the Pac-12, has been a solid conference over time, and but that said, it hasn't been like the teams that they brought over have been
Mhm.
dominant college football teams over the last 10 years. Obviously, they've had good programs. Some of the teams have had some really good seasons. Obviously, some New Year's six appearances, and obviously Oregon has been in a national championship game. But like, it's not like you were bringing over the SEC and adding them to the conference. And there's no reason why I won't be able to compete. I mean, they typically have competed against really, really good teams over years past. Obviously, hasn't gone in our favor over the past 3 or so years, but in general, right, Iowa has historically beat some really, really good teams. And the fact that obviously Iowa has NIL stuff in place, the interim AD has been doing actually a fantastic job with trying to build that up, not just for the football program, but for the rest of sports as well. So all in all, I don't see this being, the end of the world for the Iowa football program, right? I mean, as you mentioned, Iowa's program has been extremely strong. You really can look at it as a top 25 program overall. And then when you look at the revenue that they're bringing in, it's not like they're going to have shortage of money. It's not like they're going to have,
Yeah.
um, you know, run down facilities and things like that. Like they're gonna have the opportunities there, and obviously we know Coach Ferentz is going to be there forever. So the person who they end up bringing in, whoever ends up taking over for him, is going to have a fantastic opportunity to go ahead and continue to build on this program. So yeah, I don't see all the negativity. Personally, I was super excited for that. I mean, like those are going to be some fun games. Like obviously, going to be taking a trip at some point. Maybe heading out to Oregon, or you're heading out
Mhm.
to the Coliseum to watch them play USC. Like those are going to be fun. Games to attend. So, I'm super excited for Iowa as a program, and even more excited for the players and the coaches that get to take part in that.
Next year, road trip. Well, you got Ohio State back on the schedule, back in Columbus. That's going to be tough. Going
Yep.
to UCLA, getting to play in the Rose Bowl in a regular season game. Hawkeye fans, let's hope that is, late October, early November, a little late fall getaway. Get out there and make that one happen for that. Me and my tailgate group, we're already talking about, all right, let's fly into Vegas for a couple of days. Then we'll drive over to LA for the game on Saturday, come back. I mean, we're all getting all this planned out. And this is something different. This is something Hawkeye fans have been clamoring for this now since we've seen the 9-game conference schedule come in. Yes, you get another Big Ten game, but it's led to more games against Rutgers and Maryland and Purdue and Illinois as opposed to the heavy heads. Now Hawkeye fans get it. They get the great non-conference games quote of the past. Those are back. It's too hard now. Knock it off. The defeatist attitude, it can drive me nuts at times. Yes. Is it going to be difficult? Absolutely. Is it daunting? It is. Do we need to be better offensively to compete? No doubt. But that's regardless. It doesn't matter if you're taking on Minnesota or you're taking on UCLA. This program, if they're going to get to the heights we want to see, yes, they have to be better on that side of the football. We will continue here. We'll make our picks, including the Iowa game against Purdue coming up this weekend. LeShun, he has been very good. Me, not so much. We'll do that as we continue on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Snap into NFL this season and all the NFL action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, if you're a new customer out there, you can get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Sounds pretty good for a guy like me. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, no better time to get in on the action. Easy to use, a wide range of betting options, the spreads, the player props, the over-unders. Same game parlay. How about this? Coming up Sunday in the NFL, we got Kansas City up in Minnesota. Anytime touchdown, a 4-teamer here for a same game parlay bet. Justin Jefferson, Travis Kelce, Isaiah Pacheco, TJ Hawkinson, better than 18-1 on that one. Visit FanDuel.com/lockdown and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, as we continue on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Speaking of FanDuel, it is time to make our picks. LeShun continuing to create distance as he has absolutely clubbed me throughout this year. So it's time to get on the right track. We have now flipped it over. It is no longer September. It is, well, you remember Brock Purdy had Brocktober. All right, this is Trent. This is Trenttober, and I know it doesn't work, but this is my month. All right, I've seen all the teams. We got all the database. NFL's been great for me. College, I have stunk to high heaven, but that's okay. I've had these years in the past, but I always find a way to at least get back towards even, and that's what we're going to do here. So let's get into our picks this week here and take a look at the matchups. Pick number 1. This one's intriguing. The tee box is yours. You get the first call. Maryland, the Terrapins, getting 20 in Columbus.
Yeah. Obviously we all know how hard it is to go into Columbus and play well and win. But that said, this one, I feel like the line is just so big, and Maryland has been so strong, just in general, right? They played extremely well this entire year. Really haven't had any close games. I want to say their closest game was against Charlotte, maybe something like that. So they played really strong the entire year. Obviously, the real matchup for this is going to be Maryland's offense versus that Ohio State defense. Obviously, Tua's brother has been doing a fantastic job distributing the football, and they've been able to run the ball extremely consistently. And I see that as enough reason for Maryland to be able to cover and keep it somewhat close.
Disagree. So I was right away when this line came out, all about Maryland. Love the way the Terps have played. And then I did my investigation work, and it was time to dig in because I have my initial numbers that I come up with. Then I dig in a little bit more. And when I dug in, it's kind of like I felt when Notre Dame played Ohio State a couple weeks ago. Remember how I told you I flipped? Now, that thing ended right on the number, and depending on where you got it. If you got a 3.5, you got a 2.5, you got a 3. That depended on if you got a win on that one. But it was a good number. It was a good handicap. But I think this one is too. The step up in competition for Maryland is immense. Looking back at what Ohio State has done, I think we all remember that time that Maryland had a chance to win the game and going for 2. Outside of that game, though, Ohio State throttles them. They put 60 up. Now, this offense isn't like past offenses. CJ Stroud is not there. McCord is not CJ Stroud. We know that. And going back to the quarterbacks, but can they still score 45? I think so. And the biggest thing, boy, this Ohio State defense, Jim Knowles in year number 2, he's got these guys playing well. It's not going to be the 63-3 games that we've seen in the past in this one, but this thing might be 42-17. I'm going to lay it here, and I'm going to go with the Buckeyes with my first pick. Pick number 2, I'm up first here. It is the Red River Shootout. It is Oklahoma against Texas down in the Cotton Bowl. It is the Texas State Fair. It is two teams, speaking of not knowing how good they are, that Oklahoma schedule has not been exactly awe-inspiring last week. Oh, it was a game against Iowa State before they pulled away in the second half and got it done, but Iowa State was moving up and down the field. Well, I don't want to believe in Texas because I've been so right over the last 15 years, not believing in Texas. And now I look like an idiot because for the 16th year, I don't believe in Texas. But I don't know how many more data points I'd need. I mean, you walk into Alabama and do that. Every look ahead spot they have answered. They have done it every single time. And I think they'll do it again. But maybe this is just want more than actual pick. Give me Oklahoma in the points. I just want to see a good game.
Yeah, usually this is always a great game, right? It's usually, obviously, when you got a rivalry like this that's as storied, as electric as this is, it's going to be close. And the thing that intrigues me the most is Oklahoma's defense and the way that they create turnovers. They believe they lead the country in interceptions. And obviously, Texas has found some success in the run game really over the past few weeks. We know how good they are in the trenches. So they'll probably try to lean on that. But if it gets to an point where, they have to throw the ball a lot, I feel like Oklahoma has been really, really good on the back end. And it's going to be a test for the Longhorns, I think, there. So give me Oklahoma. Give me the points. I think it's going to be close just because it's this rivalry, but I feel like that's where Oklahoma has potential to cause some trouble for Texas.
Pick number 3, back to you, LeShun, and it is an SEC affair with Georgia playing host to Kentucky. Big number here with former Hawkeye Mark Stoops' squad. They're getting 15 down between the hedges.
Yeah, should be a good one. Obviously, Kentucky's been playing solid. Obviously, they dominated Florida the other week. Who knows? Like they've been good. They've been terrible, right? Like you don't really know what Florida right now. And Georgia, I don't know. It almost feels like they're kind of coasting a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's like they start off really, really slow. They get into the locker room and Kirby Smart just goes ahead and just rips the entire team a new one, and they come out and they play better. If they get in a situation like that again, I feel like Kentucky is strong enough to at least not let them pull away too far, just kind of like the way that Auburn did last week. Mm-hmm. So I see that continuing. Line's pretty big. So give me Kentucky. I feel like they have an opportunity to be competitive and keep this close. I don't think they'll win, but I definitely do think that they'll be competitive here.
Same thing as I said earlier in the Ohio State game. This was one where the deeper I went into it, same thing. Georgia hasn't covered all season long. And I remember the last couple of these games, Kentucky's come in kind of flying high, expectations, they can hang around, and it just doesn't work. They don't have the explosiveness offensively to hang around. And Georgia a week ago, they went on the road for the first time, tough environment. They go down there to Auburn, wasn't pretty, down 10-0 right in the football game. And hey, that Brock Bowers guy, let's get the ball to him a couple of times. It's like Carson finally figured that out. And now I think they got it figured out here. I just ultimately don't see how Kentucky can score enough to hang around here. I think Kentucky wins 27-10, 31-13, something like that. Just kind of a slow, grinded out kind of game. If it doesn't happen, though, I think we have to start to have some real questions about this Georgia team. Pick number 4, Notre Dame. They got up for the big game, obviously, against Ohio State. Last week, game days in town. They got to go to Duke. They have to go on the road after that emotional game. Found a way to get it done. The 4th and 16 play by Sam Hartman, incredible to extend the drive, and then they score a play later to survive against the Dukies. Next week, they got USC. Let down, look ahead sandwich. That's what this one is. I'm grabbing the points here. Give me Louisville plus the 6.5.
So I was debating that heavy, and I was really leaning that way. But Notre Dame hasn't done me wrong yet this year,
Yeah.
so I'm sticking with the Fighting Irish. They've been playing well. Obviously, they've got a big game next week, but obviously they got to come out. They got to play strong. They know what it looked like last week when they weren't as locked in. So I don't think they're going to let that happen twice. So give me Notre Dame. They're going to come out and play well.
And after the Irish, we wrap up as we do each and every week with the Hawkeyes, Iowa, a 2-point favorite at home against Purdue. You get the first call on this one, LeShun.
Yeah. So obviously, anytime over the past few years playing Purdue has obviously made me and probably way more Hawkeye fans crazy nervous. Right? They've been extremely good offensively, and for some reason, on defense, we have not been able to find a way to slow them down that much. Obviously, we were able to last year. So hopefully can continue that trend. But it's obviously going to come down to us on offense. You can't expect the defense always to bail us out. And the thing that I liked last week, even though his stats didn't show it, I love the way that DeJean was spreading the ball around and trying to get other people involved. And hopefully, obviously, building on that and week of practice and getting that rhythm down. Hopefully, that's going to translate into more opportunities for us offensively to put some success out there to make it so, hey, the Purdue defense can't just crowd the line of scrimmage and go one-on-one on the edges, right? Because we're not going to give those guys opportunities. So looking forward to this game. I think that Iowa's going to be ahead and cover. They should come out and play well. But again, I feel like it's going to depend on DeJean and how they spread the ball around.
I look at this game, and Jeff Brom's not there. That's good. Yes, you mentioned last season that was also in a wind tunnel, and it was just a game script that worked out incredibly well for Iowa. Caleb went off in that game. He had a monster performance in kind of his coming out party a season ago. Every one of my points that I do, every statistical model that I use, believe that the Cade McNamara injury is overstated. And that's where I am too. Cade's a lot better quarterback when he's healthy than Deacon Hill. We didn't see a healthy Cade McNamara all season long. And frankly, he was bad his 4 games in. That's not the guy that we thought we were going to see. I'm excited about Deacon's upside, the strong arm, the ability to go down the field. There's going to be growing pains and the accuracy that does concern me, but I just think Iowa right now is a better football team than Purdue. And year number 1 of Ryan Walters, I think they're going to get there. I really like the hire for Purdue and what they're trying to do. I just don't think they're there right now. I rewatched the Illinois Purdue game. Seemingly every break went their way throughout the course of that football game. I think that was probably overstated how good they were in that one too. I'm taking the Hawks. Give me Iowa. I'll lay the 2, and we will see. So on the same side on that one, LeShun, with that, another week in the books, and we are less than a month away from you and me hanging out at Merkel's in Wrigleyville for the the day before the Iowa Northwestern game down there. It should be a great time.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt. Definitely looking forward to that one.
Looking forward to this one. It is Purdue on tap, and you win this one, it is a monster. After that, on the road at Wisconsin. We'll talk about that again next week with you. Hey, LeShun, thanks as always for your time. Talk to you next week.
Yes, sir. Go Hawks.